What's up guys, the Lazy Goldmaker here today. I'm not going to continue with my profession previews because I realized that we're already too late. This is the launch day, or a week before if you're a patron. And I need to talk about a more pressing question, which is how am I going to set up my characters for Dragonflight? Which means that I won't get to alchemy and engineering before launch. I did a quick look at them today though, so we're going to have a small tidbit about them in this video. But for the most part, we'll focus on my setup. How I'm setting up my characters. I haven't leveled all of them yet. I still have a week. Apparently it only takes me 2 hours to get to 60, so I should have time. So that's what we're going to focus on. And sort of my general strategy, what I'm going to do. That's what we'll be talking about in this video. I think that's going to be very, very helpful because, well, this profession system is insanely complicated. There's huge pitfalls. I don't even know the pitfalls yet because no one's actually played on a realm where these have been active. So I could be completely wrong. That's also very important to note in this video. You can trust that this is what I'm currently planning. But number one, the game is going to change. My thoughts are going to change. And once we hit live servers, then we'll figure out what actually works and what doesn't. So take this for what it is. This is a snapshot of what I'm currently thinking. Don't take my word for some kind of law on high. This is the weirdest profession launch in history, or rather the one where we have least previous history. With all the changes, we don't know how anything is going to play out, really. We can guess. My guesses aren't always good, guys. So, yeah. So, all that being said, tier list. Well, I'm not going to make a tier list for professions. I made one for Wrath. I think I was decently right. I'll probably make a video where I go through my predictions and see how right or wrong I was by comparing it to my actual sales. But I'm not going to make one for Dragonflight specifically because each profession has a lot of different options. What are you going to specialize in? Weapons, armor, alloys. Well, you pick one. What's the value of blacksmithing? You can only really do one per blacksmith. So I'm not going to rank them at all. Or I'm going to rank them. I'm going to talk about what I'm planning to do, but I'm not going to be like, this is S tier, this is A tier, this is F tier. There's a lot of good builds, and if you're a patron, then you'll have my full list of potential builds. If you're not a patron, then you should go to patreon.com/thelazygoldmaker /thelazygoldmaker. That's it. There's a link in the video description. Then you can get a list of a bunch of different builds that we've theory crafted for specific use cases, whether you have this on your main, on an alt, on a character you're planning to do an alt knowledge on or not. So one thing that I'm very strongly considering for all professions is this node. Every profession has like one generic node that gives you blacksmithing skill with every recipe. And I'm strongly considering putting about 10 points into this early on, maybe even more. The reason for this is twofold. Usually they have nodes like this, like blacksmithing has, where you get bonus skill at specific breakpoints, which makes it pretty efficient. And the other reason is because, first of all, we don't know which recipes are going to be good. Second of all, stuff like embellished armor might be nerfed, so maybe something that looks really good at launch gets nerfed and now it's terrible and no one wants it. So there's some value to being flexible. With at least 10 points, more than that's a little bit risky because then you lose out on like being early to market with quality 5. But 10 points is fairly safe, and then you can once again, like putting some points early on, maybe a little bit more than is optimal in the base node could be a play. That's something I'm considering. Definitely not made up my mind, but it seems like a good idea. Now, one trend I'm waiting on, or rather one piece of information that I'm waiting on, which is going to decide like exactly what builds I do for each profession, is more information about simulations and what items people want. Most specifically, embellished effects. So embellished effects, you can have 2 of them. If you notice the unique equipped embellished on this bracer, you can either some armors have unique effects they come with that are embellished. Or for generic armors, you can add embellishments with optional reagents. In general, most of these embellished effects seem very, very strong, and you're going to want to have 2 at all times. But which ones are people going to want? If every plate class wants this bracer, for instance, then maxing bracers is very, very good. If no one wants this, then maxing bracers is very, very bad because bracers is generally a pretty low value slot. So that's something we just have to wait for. I just have to wait. That's going to change a lot of what I specialize in, but not the big picture, which is going to be that I focus on gear. I'm also going to be covering everything. I'm going to be running 4 characters that I try to level up fairly quickly. As you all know, or as most of you know, I have 2 accounts for World of Warcraft. And that means that I can level 2 characters roughly at the same time by having one account on the other monitor. And then I just tab back and forth, put myself on follow, loot if I need to loot for a quest, or just put on follow and ride off into the sunset if we're just going to ride to the quest, back to the quest giver. I did this in Sereth Mortis, I did this in Shadowlands. It's slower than leveling 1 character, but it's a lot faster than leveling 2 characters one after the other. So I'm going to do 2 sets of 2. I'm going to do them as fast as possible to get to wherever they can start earning knowledge, and then I'll swap to the second set and get those up there, and then I'll level up to 60 after that. So that's the basic idea. I'm going to cover every profession. I was considering not doing alchemy engineering, but I'm just too lazy to swap out or to do more boosts / leveling, so I'll just bring alchemy engineering, because then I can have that as a goblin as well, so I get access to the goblin racial for cheap stuff from vendors. But there's definitely very strong arguments to have like multiple blacksmiths, multiple leatherworkers, and multiple jewel crafters in particular, due to the vast number of different items they can craft that are in the type of items that I like, which is gear. That's where I've made most of my gold the last couple of expansions. That's what I like to sell. It's what works for me and my preference, essentially. So what's my setup? Well, since profession racials are a thing, and they are extremely strong in this in this expansion, we had to focus, we had to utilize that. So for my 4 characters, my main is probably going to be a Death Knight, which will be a completely new character, a Nightborn. I'm going with Inscription Enchanting on this one. I picked Inscription and Nightborn, the Inscription bonus, over Enchanting, just because I like gear a little bit more, and Inscription is a little bit more gear focused than Enchanting. So I'd rather have the Nightborn bonus. Then I have a Blacksmith Leatherworker, which is the Lightforged Draenei. You can have a Dark Iron Dwarf as well. Both of them have the blacksmithing bonus. I think the blacksmithing bonus is really, really strong. Particularly due to the fact that you can skip a lot of the last 5 nodes in the weapon trees, which is just going to be very, very good. Then I have a Draenei that's a Jewel Crafter Tailor. This is also going to be a new character. And then an Alchemy Engineer, which is my Goblin. That's my Warlock. It already has Vial of the Sand, so I can't really swap professions on it ever. I'll raise change it to Goblin. That's the plan. So that's the setup. That means I get the Blacksmithing bonus, I get the Jewel Crafting bonus, I get the Inscription bonus. I also get the Alchemy bonus, but I don't care so much about that. So I have half of the professions have the +5 bonus. The only +5 bonus I'm missing is Enchanting, really. But I'm not going to make another character for that, because I don't know how much time it's going to take to keep on top of knowledge, which is going to be a bigger factor. If you can't keep on top of knowledge, then the extra 5 skill just doesn't matter at all. You could also obviously put leatherworking tailoring on the Cold Tyrann for +2, but I just think that the +5 is a lot stronger. So I'd rather have +5 blacksmithing and jewel crafting than +2 on leatherworking and tailoring. Just because +5 will allow you to skip a lot of the last 5 nodes in certain cases. Like it'll be, I can put 25 points here and it's the same as someone without the bonus putting 30 points here, and then that compounds over all of the recipes, and that's just extremely efficient. So that's my setup. Now, obviously, in general, I expect to make most of my gold with gear. That's been the case in every expansion, every version of the game I've played for the last couple of years. It was the case in BFA. It was the case in Shadowlands. It's been the case in Wrath. Gear is my forte. That's where I like to be. I like that it's less competition than most other items. It's very, very high demand. Very early on, you have to be there, and then it tapers off, which means you can scale back your effort, and you've already made a ton of gold. So that's the idea. Now, obviously, I can't pick slots yet. I can't pick specific items to focus on, because we need to wait for Sims. So I'll be reading PvE guides as they come out to figure out what the good ones to focus on are. And that's the thing. Like, I'll be focusing on blacksmithing, leatherworking, tailoring, inscription, jewel crafting. Those are the 5 I expect to make most of my gold with. And those 5 are my main focus, and if I have to choose, then I'll put all knowledge towards those, and I'll skip some of the others for knowledge. Like maybe I won't max out enchanting every week, and just have like a disenchanter, for instance, which only requires like 40-50 knowledge to be maxed out, and then I don't need any more. If I have time, if it turns out that it's easy to stay on top of knowledge for those characters, then I'll definitely add multiple blacksmiths and leatherworkers, because they have a super wide variety of gear recipes, and it's going to take a long time to max out both weaponsmithing and armor smithing, so having an extra one that can focus on armor. The same with leatherworking, having 2 types of armor, mail and leather, which with their own crafting trees. So that's sort of it. That's what I'm planning to do. Focus on gear, focus on the strong embellished effects to drive sales, and try to power level to max skill, which means that I will be going dual crafter on all of my characters from day one, and I'll power level my professions as early as possible, so that I can be early on the crafting order system, selling people quality 1 crafted gear when they're actually willing to pay for that, so that I can get my skill leveled as early as possible. I think leveling skill is going to be very hard. I think that's going to be a little bit similar to how leveling legendary recipes was in Shadowlands. So I want to focus on being there, potentially being able to level up to max skill profitably, because if you're a couple of days late, then you probably have to pay to level. You might have to pay a lot to do it out of pocket. You might have to pay people in trade chat to send you private orders for quality 1 gear that they may or may not need. I think it's going to be a lot harder if you're not on the curve. So that's why I'll be going double crafter. I also hate farming, so I wouldn't ever spend enough time farming to make it worth it. And if you're not actually spending time farming, then it's just awful, in my personal opinion. If you like farming and you spend a lot of time doing it, then it's perfect. So that's it. That's what I'm doing. And I also promised you a little bit of a view on alchemy and engineering, why I'm not focusing on them. Engineering has some pretty good gear, actually, some very strong gear, but it can only be equipped by other engineers, so your market is very limited, which is why I don't really like it that much. Alchemy, on the other hand, is actually looking pretty good. We got to return to research from Wrath to unlock recipes. The only issue I have is that you're competing with the entire realm, or the entire region, I should say. So if you're not first to market, or not very early to market with a given recipe, it's going to be very hard to make gold. There's also a huge number of different files, and I expect that only a few of them will be super in demand. So I'm not a huge fan of alchemy, even though I fully expect that you will be able to make an obscene amount of gold if you're early to market with alchemy, but it just doesn't jive with how I play the game. There's too much competition, since you have to face the entire realm, which means you need to be like absolutely on the bleeding edge of knowledge the entire time, and I'd rather not have to be like perfectly optimized. So yeah, so that's it. That's what I'm going into Dragonflight with. Hopefully you have planned out your characters and you're ready to get, well, flying into the next expansion. Good luck, have fun, make some gold. We'll see you on the next video.